Everybody, we are back with everybody's favorite strength coach, Dan John. What's in your cup, good sir?
Sadly, just coffee.
Mm.
I knew I had to work this morning, doing the podcast. So it's just delicious mountain grown coffee, the richest kind. This is from the Polar Express that I take my family on every year. And I spend, there's a comma in the check I write, and I get a coffee mug. So that's pretty good,
Well deserved. Yeah, very good. I'm even more boring. I've got water here. I do have a vice. I'll share it with everybody. These here, this is not a sponsor of the show, but if you haven't tried these, they're called Smart Sweets. They're Swedish fish.
Yes.
They've got
fiber, right?
Yeah, 28 grams of fiber in this little packet. Only 3 grams of sugar, and I'll tell you what, I would take this over any actual candy any day. These things are absolutely delicious. So this is
We'll warn you about eating too many of them, but we'll save the warning for another time.
Yeah, so that is my current vice. Smart Sweets, sweet fish, but we all need a little something every now and then.
Don't take them on a Greyhound bus ride across the country. We'll just say that nicely. Okay?
I think that's fair. So what's up? How's your past week been?
It's been great. I've really had a wonderful couple of days. My friend Brian is staying with me. He's the guy that runs my podcast.
Cool.
My website, Dan John Workouts, and he's here for a couple of days. We're just going to do some filming of some exercises that kind of have some issues, that talk about some things, and just hang out. Last night we got a lot done. Kind of just making sure everyone, how it goes when you start doing a project, and we're in that weird phase where all of a sudden it's starting to go this way, which is good. We got to make sure we take care of all the other issues, like if I get hit by a bus or something like that, So
right. That's good.
Going well. Sadly, college bowl season is almost done, which is, I really enjoy college football, so there is some sadness in my talk. But since I've been with you last time, I've done that really hard workout now twice. I think I mentioned it, but where I do 8 goblet squats, push the prowler 20 meters, 8 push-ups. Well, last Friday I did that 20 times. So math-wise, if you believe in math, that's 160 squats and 160 push-ups. And it's a 400-meter push. So
ouch.
That does. And then yesterday, so I did 20, and yesterday was the 5, and I got through the 5 like, wow, this thing called conditioning, I think I'm getting in shape. 5 was so easy. And Robert, by the way, just so you know, Pat, lots and lots of people listen to this podcast. Last week I mentioned Robert Leisman, and he was at the gym, and it really made a big difference to him. So let's make sure we kind of remember that, because when we drop names here, it does mean something. And so at the gym, I said to Robert, it's pretty easy. It's, only a quarter of the volume. You laugh out loud when you say that, something like that in conditioning. But the truth is, that's sort of how conditioning comes around. I've told you my theory on work capacity, right? The bags of grocery thing.
Yeah, well, let's reiterate for people who may not have heard it. Yeah. One
of the things, I was working with a doctor, a DPT, doctor of physical therapy, and he said, all this stuff. Give it to me, Frank. What do we do well and what do we do badly in physical therapy? And I said, you guys are very good in the beginning. He goes, oh, ambulatory. Yeah. When I first got a surgery, you guys are great about flipping me over in bed. You guys are wonderful about getting my legs over the side. And when the walker comes over, you're really good at getting me in the walker. And then when the crutches come around, you're really good at me getting the crutches. Fascinating. This last hip surgery, I didn't use crutches. Sorry, or a cane. I just walked. And then you say you should be fine for your performance goals of throwing the discus again, and your fitness goals of being able to walk, 10 miles. And then kind of the hand waving, South Park hand waving. We collect the hands, wave hands, make profit.
That's right, underpants nose, right?
The underpants nose. So the wave hands thing. And I said, the problem with your field right now is all you give us in the middle is, I didn't say wave hands because that would have been rude. That's my dog drinking water.
Sounds like a St. Bernard. Sounds like my dog.
So I came up with this little way to explain it. To me, this is what work capacity is. Work capacity is when you're shopping for Thanksgiving and you have 18 bags of groceries in your car, each weighing, let's just make it simpler, each weighs 20 pounds. And you have 10 steps to get to your kitchen. So you have 18 bags, 20 pounds apiece, 10 steps. Well, you can take one bag at a time and go a total 180 steps. You can take, as my option, wrap them all up at once, 360 pounds, walk up those 10 steps, hopefully nothing crashes through, and about 1,000 combinations in between. You might start off with 6 bags, get in your kitchen and go, that's too many. Get 4 bags, that seems right, until you realize you have a weird bag, so you have to take that in one hand, 2 in the other. And to me, what work capacity is the ability to deal with that matrix of 1 bag, 18 trips, perhaps 18 bags, 1 trip, or 4, 6, 2. That to me is what work capacity is. And it reminds me, like when I was in high school, so I was R1 on the kickoff team. So I was the first person on the right of the kicker. And it was always my job to get down there as fast as I can and really take the brunt of their return blocking. But, I had good speed and I was kind of smart, so I'd run around it, But, you'd sprint down there and we'd stop them. And then you get up and you see a yellow flag because one of the guys went off sides, and you had to do it again. And that was that's when I think I first started to get a clue about what work capacity is. So we all just did this massive 30, 40-yard sprint, tons of collisions, lots of danger, flags on the ground, and you got to do it again. So when you try to train a kickoff team, literally it's wind sprints being hit by a baseball bat. Well, you can't just take someone. So there's a work capacity in kickoff teams that's different than the work capacity in a sense in a typical defensive stand, where maybe I just go and then make a tackle. Which one do you need? Well, you need kind of all of it. And so I'm starting to think that work capacity, and this is the reason I think people haven't been able to define it, is because it is a bit of a spreadsheet or a matrix. Or, there's, for those of you who are just listening, I'm making X's and symbols with my hands because I think it is a bit of there's more to it than just saying run a mile in 5:51. Yeah,
and I know we've talked about this before, but I think it's a point worth jamming on, is that conditioning and work capacity tends to be pretty slippery, whereas strength is pretty sticky, right? Strength takes a while to develop, but it lasts a long time.
Have you written about that before?
Have I written about it? A while ago, I think so, yeah.
I think that's genius, okay? So strength training is sticky. For example, once you deadlift 6, you stay strong for years. You're strong for years after that. When you're conditioning, you get in shape to run the mile for football practice because coach believes that, because, how often are you in a situation like 3rd down and a mile? It happens all the time. Okay, that was a sarcasm, means to tear flesh. You get in shape for that mile run, and it has no carryover to the game of football. And by the time the season's over, you might not be within 2 minutes of the time you ran.
Exactly. Very slippery. Yep.
That's, make a note if you don't mind.
Sticky and slippery. I can do.
Because you know what I think you ought to maybe run with that is maybe some nutritional ideas on that. There are certain habits that are sticky. There are certain habits that are slippery.
Yeah, and let's do some wild speculation here. It's always interesting. So for the sticky stuff, you really want that consistency and specificity. For the slippery stuff, it seems like a little bit more variety is sometimes useful.
Yeah.
Isn't it? Yeah.
Well, I mean, you could have, you could be the best marathoner in the world, and then we go into a river literally 3 feet deep and you drown because you don't know how to swim, or you don't have, one of the schools I taught at famously, one of the greatest coaches in the history died because his child was stuck when he drowned. It was 3 feet deep. He had no experience with water at all. He didn't know. And I'm saying, here's this wonderful man, children, the whole thing, played college football. He didn't have the ability to deal with water. And
Mm-hmm.
so I'm even taking that to me. So now, so what I'm thinking is, if you don't mind me jamming on your jam,
Let's jam. Let's keep jamming on the jam.
There's sticky things like absolute strength. Absolute strength sticks around a long time. Even if I don't, no offense, gentle listener, but even if I don't train for a long time, I'm going to probably be stronger than most people.
Mm-hmm.
I benched more in high school than most people ever benched in their entire life. You know, just not bragging. I'm just saying. And then this slippery conditioning work capacity thingish kind of shows up. And then over here is what I call asymmetrical risks. For example, I have a bike that's not a great bike, but I know I can get that bike 90 miles from my house, because almost universally, if you can get 90 miles from an event like an earthquake, a nuclear bomb, poisonings, you're safe. 90 miles is like they said that's the number. You need to get 90 miles away but you have to be able to carry it over the overpasses that are all crushed. You have to be able to all the crash cars. So asymmetrical risk, swimming, learn how to fall. Those are the asymmetricals. I like this.
I got it. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's very good. Sorry if I stepped all over your point.
No, this is, you expanded on it nicely. It's one of those things that everybody recognizes is true, right? Like, you gain a certain amount of strength. Okay, if you don't practice it for a while, it will drop off, but drop off in the sense that, like, kind of riding a bike drops off. It never goes like completely away. You can regain it pretty quickly, and you always have some, maybe it's 60%, 70%. You always retain some significant percentage of it, even with a minimal amount of practice. Whereas if you don't run sprints for a couple of weeks, you're just back to ground zero, right?
Ground zero. Yeah.
Yep.
And I think, so that's the nice thing about maybe work capacity, is that funny place in the middle. If you don't mind, if I have just a thought, when you said that, is work capacity that funny area where strength and conditioning dance. If you don't have the cardiovascular ability to carry those bags in one at a time, but you still have enough strength, you can do that in 9 trips, 8 trips, and gasp the rest of the day. But if you don't have a lot of strength, you have to go with the 1 bag at a time, 18.
Yeah, I like that. The intersection where they dance. I think that's a good way of putting it. Yeah, that's good.
No, that's not bad.
That's the point of these podcasts, right? Where you get to build out these ideas and polish them up. Yeah.
When I was talking to the physical therapist guy, I said, this is where you guys miss the rehab process. And he said, so you're saying we're really good at ambulatory? And I said, yeah, whatever that means, you are. And they're really good at but then thank you very much, bye-bye. And now I get it. I knew what to do. I go to Epic Fitness 3 days a week. I train here at my house twice a week. I get it. I know the path, but a lot of people don't know the path. So that was just something that this is where my head's been for the last few days. Prompt me for more questions. I love this kind of thing. You know that.
Yeah, no, it's almost inspired me to want to write another fitness article. I can't remember last time I wrote a fitness article. I mean, I write my emails every day, but an article proper.
Yeah. Hey, this thing you're doing with it's not your fat furnace, but the one you were talking about doing a kind of intermittent fasting again, and then about a 15-minute workout before you?
Yeah, so I've been playing around. This is for myself as well, and I feel great on it. So I'm calling it Fast 15, and the idea is, because everything's 15, right? You can do it for 15 days, 15-hour fast, which is not that long, and at least a 15-minute training session. So kind of like a minimum effective dose approach to.
Yeah, so I'm right at. So I ate at 6 last night. 5 last night. Yeah, 15 is right now. Yeah.
Yeah, it sounds like a lot, but you realize most of that you're sleeping.
Yeah, so
right.
So you fast for 15 hours. You do a 15-minute workout.
15-minute, minimum effective dose. You do more, of course, but my wife's doing this with me as well. And then, so I break things up. I have 15 minutes of meditation and prayer as well in there, just for me, and then at least 15 days. At least 15 days.
Well, I like that. I don't know if you ever read my thing called the 3 E's.
Probably, but remind me.
eliminate, exercise, eat, and you try to
Yes.
cycle that through the day. So you eliminate food, you have bodily eliminations, you eliminate your to-do list, you eliminate, then you exercise, then you eat.
Yes. Very similar.
Yeah, and for me, I've always liked to I wish, Patrick, I have several regrets about what I did in my career. Okay, I'll give you real Dan John's regrets. I've had a few, but then again, too few to mention. One of my regrets was driving my back squat up. That was the cost to benefit ratio in my world for the back squat. It's funny. I was able at a time to clean front squat and back squat basically all the same limit. Right at that 400-pound range. And then they told me to drive my back squat up, and I got up to a massive back squat, and it just killed me.
Yeah.
So I would say that was one of them. The other one was this inability to handle a thing like a fast. It's weird. In the weight room, adding load in the squat for load's sake, and that's one of the things I try to constantly remind people. If it's not helping, if it's not throwing, the discus isn't going farther, the shot's not going farther, it's not working. And the inability to appreciate fasting. I think fasting would have been a great toolbox, especially in after age 21.
Yeah, and truth to that. And obviously it's not something that would be conducive to like a very highly competitive athlete if you need those calories. But a couple important points there. Certainly like some type of cyclical fasting could probably still work. But it's very interesting, right? How somebody could be really tough in one area and, kind of a total wuss in another. Isn't that something? Certainly I have been. I probably still am if I think hard enough. Like I can handle the grit and the grind here, but for whatever reason, I'm just an absolute pancake over here. Yeah, isn't that something? So yeah, like today, I've got my water. It's my fast will technically end around 11. That's when I'll have my little fiber dose, the eliminate. Then I'll go to my training session. Then I'll eat. So it'll actually be longer than an 15-hour fast, but I just set that as a sort of practical minimum.
What are you charging for this thing?
Who knows yet? Some exorbitant, extravagant. Of course.
Not that I won't share it. I like when you were doing. There was some stuff you sent me. It was in the Chronicles of Strength when it was still like a newsletter magazine-ish.
Back when it was still the Inner Circle, yeah.
Yeah, there was some stuff in there that I still keep. I still look at. It was I wouldn't say it was paleo, but it was just real solid stuff.
So this protocol is like, it's super back to basics. I mean, for anybody who wants to understand, like I'm just giving the details all pretty much now. And if you just want it written down, you can decide if you want that, but it'll be the 15-hour fast, and we'll have other certain restrictions. And I want people to understand that like restrictions are inevitable in life. You hear this stuff about people like dieting without restrictions that it just makes me like, what the hell are you talking about? Right? Like all of life is about managing compromises. It's just what restrictions make sense. What restrictions are we going to pick? How do we pick the right restrictions? So that's just a little pet peeve of mine. So 15-hour fast, and then I have a collection of 15-minute workouts. Some are strength focused, some mobility, some work capacity. So just kind of like a buffet there. Again, just make sure you do a few of these per week. And then just some, practical tips and guidelines to implement. And then, sort of a 15-day minimum commitment. But my idea with this is, again, hopefully this could become a 90-year plan for somebody who really just wants to make it a lifestyle. Yeah.
And what you said there, I don't know if you're doing a 3-day or 4-day rotation, but I love the idea of doing a serious 15-minute strength work. And people probably listening going, 15 minutes, that's not enough. Come visit. I'll show you what you can do in 15 minutes. Yeah.
How are you wasting your time if 15 minutes isn't enough?
And then a 15-minute mobility, and then the third day being a 15-minute, and whatever you want to call that, heat up, the intensity day. And the fourth day, a 15-minute walk.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So that's pretty close to what it is right now. See, I was channeling my inner Dan John.
Yeah. Because I think what happens sometimes, what people do, and this is just an observation, is that they think it's day 1 intense, day 2 intense, day 3 intense, day 4 intense, day 5 I quit forever. But
Yeah.
you need to see, you need to, and I like the idea, I'm a big fan of combining mobility work with hypertrophy work. And I think there's a value in strength work, strength and flexibility work well. But I also think that if you give things their own day, it works. I get these questions a lot about,
I agree.
can I do this, this, and this? Yes, but it's not, you're not going to be the world's best marathoner or Olympic lifter if you do both.
Yes.
But if you Olympic lift and you run 10Ks, every 8 weeks you compete in an Olympic lifting meet, and every 4 weeks, in halfway through you compete in a 5 or 10K, you're gonna be a pretty good little. You're gonna have a nice little engine.
Yeah, and that's another good point, because if you just save your mobility work or your flexibility work for the last 5 minutes of your routine, okay, maybe you'll be really efficient in those 5 minutes, or maybe like most people, you'll just walk out of the gym, skip it entirely, right? But if you dedicate a day and a session specifically to that, like, this is my focus, you're even if it's just 15 minutes, you're going to get a lot more out of it. So I'm with you completely. Have a day for it.
So Thursday here at the gym is Tonic Thursday, and all we do for an hour is mobility, flexibility. We do the wrist stretches, we do the feet stretches. And what's weird about this, Pat, because we're all good sized engines. We're, I don't want to brag too much, but if you want a caber turned or someone taken care of, you see.
We got it on my YouTube channel, your caber turn. It's like 10 videos back.
Yeah. So when I dedicate a day to mobility, flexibility, stretching, certain problem areas, I am starving at the end of that workout. All I can think about is food, because mobility and flexibility have a bigger hit on me than doing a snatch test or doing the Olympic lifts, because my body's like, come on, let's run through the wall. No. We're gonna love
this. This is going to sound weird, but that's like my favorite kind of hunger. My favorite kind of hunger is a hunger you get from a fast and a brisk walk. There's something I really actually enjoy about. Of course, I'm looking forward to the food I'm about to eat. Yeah. But there's something about that. It's like I don't know. It's a deep primal sort of hunger that you develop, but you feel good, right? You feel good when you're in that sort of hungry state. At least you can feel good once you get used to it.
There's some backpackers now. This is not. I'm out of my element right now, but now they're getting up and maybe drinking a cup of coffee just to get the certain body systems moving. If you don't get my joke, I'll explain it later. And then they're going on a day, on a hiking day, they're trying to get their hike in, and then they sit around and they eat the 3 meals, and heavier cheese, heavier than in dried meats, heavier and, more, I don't want to call it keto because we're running down that weird road, but the idea is that you walk, feast, sleep, and then the next day and I guess one thing is you're not constantly stopping and eating. You're not constantly stopping. You're getting that 10 miles in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and part of what I want to do with this protocol, and even for me this year, is really focus more on that fasting and feasting cycle that we've been talking about, and make sure that people remember the feasts too. The feasts are important, but let's do a proper fast beforehand. So that's a big theme for me this year, and I would invite the gentle listener to consider it for themselves as well.
It was nice, having Brian here. My mother-in-law came by last night too. I felt like what we did last night was a typical John family dinner. We had I had steaks that were smallish. We had a massive amount of broccoli, cauliflower. We had a salad. I made baked potatoes last night, which were a little too big. But the idea is that after a long day, we drink a very expensive wine last night, and really enjoy the feast.
Yes.
Feast to eat, and then afterwards you sit. Brian did an excellent job, because he's right here, so I have to say that. Excellent job cutting the cheese.
Good job, Brian.
2 meetings in our home, but it was, and so the thing is, you feast, you eat, you sit around, and you shouldn't, if you're going to eat. If you're going to fast, even though I think there's some value, Maffetone recommends it. Of course, Dave Asprey recommends it. The Bulletproof Coffee, the fat coffee breakfast. And one of the knocks people have on it, well, if you're consuming fat, then you're not fasting. And I'm like, yeah, but okay. Then I start to stop and go, you're right. Because if you're fasting, fast. And if you're feasting, feast.
Mm-hmm.
And I think what hurts a lot of people is they get in that ugly little thing where I make this joke all the time. You know, your daughter comes home from college and says, I met the love of my life. And you say, well, what is he like? Well, he's okay. What's he look like? Yeah, he's happy.
Yeah.
What's his hair like? Yeah, it's brownish something, you know.
Receding.
Yeah. It's, you know, that's,
no offense. I'm probably going to be there pretty soon. I had a huge gray hair just sticky out of my head the other day. Christine's, my wife's like, oh yeah, you're going to be a silver fox pretty soon here. I'm like, oh.
Well, it takes a while, so hang in there. Okay.
You're pretty good. Yeah, I can't really detect too much gray from here.
My daughter Lindsay especially loves to do it. My hair gets to a certain length, and then the grays start to flip around right here, and she'll walk up to me and go, "That one's mine." And the funny thing is, for about a 5-year period, it's true. They are yours. You made me have, and now she's delightful. So what are you gonna do?
Yeah. How about it? But yeah, the fasting and the feasting and final. We could keep going on it if you want. I always enjoy this particular topic. Is that can be a daily thing, like we're talking about. You can have a fast every day and a feast every day. It can also be a weekly thing, and it's for me, it's a both and. It's an all of the above, and a monthly thing, even a yearly thing. That we just have certain phases during the year where I am fasting. I'm working really hard. I'm making the sacrifices, and then I'm going to have the feast. So having those micro, meso, and macro cycles of the fast and feast, I think, are really helpful.
I was going to do the fast mimicking diet monthly, and I had to catch myself. Probably what was it? It had to have been in the summer, I guess. And I said, that's not the way you work. And so now I'm doing the thing where I do 0 carb in a month, and then the next month I'll do fast mimicking. And people go, well, wait a second. So 1 month you eat nothing but meats, cheese, fish, fowl, and then next month all you eat is vegetables for a week. Yeah. Well, isn't that? Yes. Yes, and I'm able to survive and thrive by mixing and matching even something as simple as a 0 carb week or a no protein week.
Yeah.
And the funny thing is, you end up doing pretty good. I got to tell you, Pat, it's this past year has been as illuminating. 2019 was sublime in many ways. But the one thing I came away with is that I realized that, you know, if you do certain things ongoing, boom, 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 that's amazing. But if you also go feast fast, that's amazing. And you're going to raise your hand and say, well, which one's right? I'll say, yes. Both and. You're very good. In fact, that's, you know, both and has been one of the hardest things I've had in my career as a strength coach. Brian and I did our Dan John, we answer the questions on the podcast, you know, for our site. Mm-hmm. And people, whenever I do say something that our gentle listeners there struggle. Yesterday, you know, I keep getting questions about Pavel's simple and sinister. And I keep telling people, ask him. You know, okay, so Dan, I'm doing Pavel's simple and sinister. I'm having problems here. Yeah, because I would never do that. Mm-hmm. Well, what should I do? Well, you should ask him. Mm-hmm. So the program is one-handed swings and heavy Turkish getups. 2 things I never do. Never. 1,000 questions go. Why don't you do Turkish getups? Cost-benefit ratio. Don't trust it. Mm-hmm. Well, but in the book it says it's the best thing since, you know, cottage cheese. Yeah, but with my experiences, my $1 million assets that I work with, I can't afford to hurt anyone. Mm-hmm. But I saw on YouTube this guy. Yes, you saw this person do a bar trick. Good for them.
Yep.
One-handed swings. Why do you hate them? Because if one is done wrong, that ballistic forces I just don't trust. And I've seen a lot of people do bad swings and doing them one-handed. One-handed bad swings is right up there on my list of the stupidest things you can do in life. Mm-hmm. Not top 10, no. I have a couple others that are higher. One time I was in was on the coast. I was in St. Croix, and we were going out to go either crayfish or crawfish. I can't remember what they're called. And the guy I was with, our guide, smoked the largest marijuana cigarette I've ever seen in my life. It looked like smoking a log for a fire. And he handed me a spear gun with an explosive tip on it. And I said, "Why do I need a spear gun?" "Oh, hey, man, there was a tiger shark. He killed a tourist about a week ago."
Oh.
That's up there with the dumbest things I've ever done. When you're out there in the middle of the ocean with a guy who's stoned and we're getting crayfish and crawfish, and when the other guy goes around, the other person is looking for tiger sharks, that's the stupidest thing I've ever done. No, that's not the stupidest thing.
That's the one that we're willing to talk about anyways.
Yes.
Yeah.
Actually, I haven't really. Another time we'll go through Dan's stupidest moments. Yes.
well, the funny thing about the Getup is people ask me why I don't program heavy Getups very often. It's to your point. I think that certainly past a certain intensity of the Getup, the cost-benefit ratio isn't there. And I find much more utility out of the Getup or even partial Getups more as actually a work capacity move or a mobility exercise. That's where I think it's better suited. Doesn't mean like you can't do relatively higher intensity Getups, but I never push like the super heavy Getups because I've seen a lot of freak accidents happen. It just they don't seem worth it.
And do you remember at the last Olympics when they had the Turkish Getup competition? You remember that one guy?
Oh yeah, when was that? 1900 never.
Yeah. So here you are. Okay, I am going to add a little bit of this miracle supplement that has dead goat brain.
I almost ate goat brain once. Christine and I went to a chef's tasting, which was incredible, but one of the dishes was an entire goat's head. It was the neck, the cheek, the tongue, and the brain. And my wife actually ate the brain. I totally chickened out. I did everything but the brain. It was like deep fried goat's brain. I don't know. It still weirds me out even thinking about it, but she said it was quite tasty.
Oh, gentle listener, this is my kitchen. Okay.
Lovely. Just lovely. If you're on iTunes, you are missing out right now of the tour. So head over to YouTube.
Do you see that okay? That's
I can't read it, but it's a plaque.
It was the Last Supper. That's where I go to school.
Oh, beautiful.
Can you guys see my babies over there? Those are my daughters. Oh, and look over here. It's little Brian. Say hi, Brian.
Hello, Brian. Podcast, Brian. Good to see you.
And of course, the star of our show. Can you see Sirius there?
Yeah, hiding. Very nice.
He's on his throne. Okay, sorry about that. I had to get more coffee.
No, fair enough.
We were talking about. It's a very inexpensive thing I buy at the store. It's a powder that's got butter in it. It's got coconut oil. It's got extra caffeine.
Yes, with the fast. You know what I'll do is because people do love to quarrel over the coffee and the fat coffee and whatever. And sometimes I'll put some coconut oil in my coffee just because I like the taste of it for no other reason. But how about this, gentle listener? When you fast, occasionally try and do it without coffee. Like just give yourself that little extra discomfort, right? Because the truth is like let's be frank. Like once you fast a while, it not only starts to feel good, but you get pretty comfortable with it. So I think it's good to throw yourself the curveball every now and then. Kick the coffee out or something else.
See, I would have done that if you said that earlier. And also,
fair enough.
There's a website, Phil Maffetone's website has a couple of really good recipes called fat burning coffees, and they're very reasonable. Basically, Pat, he just says heavy cream. Okay, there you go, heavy cream. How simple is that? Or the next one is heavy cream with a little bit of coconut oil, and then the third one is heavy cream, coconut oil, and just an egg yolk whipped up. And if I haven't done the egg yolk because of like many people my age, when Rocky first came out back in 1975 when I was trying to become an Olympian, there's that scene where he drank the raw eggs.
Yep, I remember.
Home that night about 3 a.m, got up in the fridge, cracked out 6 raw eggs, drank them down, and I've not been able to do that since that day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's disgusting. I've done the raw egg stuff, and
absolutely one of the biggest.
Yeah, I'm embarrassed to admit this, but one of my popular videos on YouTube. It's got like 400,000 views. Is me drinking raw eggs. And it's one of those videos like, why did I ever put this stupid thing up? And it's like my other popular one. It's probably getting close to 1 million views. Is actually how to goblet squat. Back when I was like just almost through puberty. So it's it's like
How to goblet squat, huh?
yeah, how to goblet. Yeah, you look it up, Pat Flynn, how to goblet squat. It's one of the, I think the top videos on goblet squats. It's up there, a couple 100,000 views. But it was a long time ago. It was like right when I first did the RKC or whatever. I put that video up.
Yeah, so don't forget, before I came along, that's the way they taught the squat. It was just so bad. It's funny to see that, you know, the organization, there's a whole bunch of, they'll include the goblet squat and never reference in their manuals that I taught them this exercise as a participant.
Mm-hmm.
It kind of, I wouldn't say it bothers me. It's just a kind of a lack of intellectual humility on their part, but two, I mean, let's be honest. You should have seen how bad it was. It was brutal. Oh, and they're all acting like, you know, and they were using words like, you know, the femoral arch has to go across the acetylum of the, you know, the antebellum, of course, the
yeah. Just pull your butt down, friend.
Yeah. Sit between your legs. You know? I'm the only participant to have ever given a workshop at one of their certs. So there you go.
Yeah, that's great. Well, we always try to give Dan John proper credit here. I mean, it's just the honorable thing to do.
Thank you.
Indeed. Well, all right, let's do some questions because here the first one is actually on goblet squats. This comes from Ken. It says, hi, Pat and Dan. I've been training kettlebell sport style for a few years and have a 16 kilogram and a 24 kilogram competition style bell in my small apartment. How different is a goblet squat with a, quote, hard style kettlebell as opposed to holding the bell bottoms up with each thumb and index finger around the horns of the bell? Any way to make the goblet squat work with the competition bell?
Yeah, the competition bells are tough because so the kettlebells that I use, the handles are angled, and the competition bells, they're parallel. So you have to make some kind of compromise. Now, when I go to gyms and I train people using the competition bells, I still have them hold on to the handles and then try to get your forearms to make the squeeze. Squeeze, there's a little bit more anaconda strength, but I've never been a fan of holding the bells upside down because the face is right there. And now I'm sure, what's the listener's name?
Ken.
Yeah, I'm sure, Ken, that probably you might not have the issue, but when you work with enough people in general population or with youth, having a weight that close to the face where any kind of fatigue could allow that face to get smashed. I have two friends who've lost teeth doing bench presses.
Yeah, that was a horror story at one of my old gyms. He lost half of his face, pretty much half of his head from the bench press coming down.
Yeah, and so I don't want the goblet squat to be in that house. So if you don't mind, if you can, now if you have to do something different, and by the way, there's nothing wrong with just hugging it like you hold a child. You know, hold it like you're holding a child, and maybe
give it a little kiss on the top of its kettlebell head.
Just the only problem with that is you can't really push it out. And you'll notice with the composition styles, there's a couple things you can't do. You can't do the goblet squat curl. That's when you sit in the bottom position and do curls. You can, but it's really hard. The heartbeat works okay, but you're constantly fighting the grip. Heartbeats, by the way, in my language, folks, is when you have a kettlebell or a dumbbell and you have an arm's length, you bring it to your chest and pump it out. Boom, 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 boom. It's like think about you're in the bottom of the goblet squat and your arms are doing that snappy push-up motion, if that's helpful. But Ken, you've chosen an exercise, you've chosen a piece of equipment that doesn't necessarily blend perfectly with everything, and that's just. But remember,
and that's the point of competition. So, like the competition style bell is designed specifically for kettlebell sport moves, so we shouldn't be surprised that it doesn't lend itself well to some of these other exercises. You know,
it's like if all you have is a fixed fitness barbell. Like when I was young, they used to come in, they were 80, 85, 90, 95, 100, and they were these stainless steel fixed barbells. They're really good for doing basic training, but they don't work at all for the Olympic lifts. The Olympic lifting bar, as amazing as it can be, doesn't work well in an apartment.
Yeah.
You know, so every piece of equipment has this, you know, variety of problems, strengths and issues. Okay.
So let me toss this question to you. I did a solo episode on this, but would like your perspective. Somebody said they got around $100 gift card from Amazon and they wanted to make the minimalist home gym. So Dan John has $100 gift card. They said specifically Amazon. So how are you going to spend that? $100 ish. Maybe we can go a little bit above, but
I don't know. I don't know what the prices are off the top of my head, but a suspension trainer and a kettlebell might be all you need.
yeah.
Because with the suspension trainer, and there's so many varieties, and the prices are so good now, that would be number one. Or something I've been doing lately, and they're very inexpensive, is those. They're the rubber bands. And they literally are the thick tube bands with the handles. I'm amazed at how good those work on the road. So on the road, and maybe that's what this is. I like the Brett Contreras hip band.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe those, I don't know, they're tubes that you stand if you're pressing, and they both have handles that you can press overhead. You can front squat kind of okay. Those are the two best exercises. I guess you can wrap them deep, but do a hinge movement. But I would say a suspension trainer and a kettlebell, if you can. And for men, the 20; for women, the 10 kilo bell.
Yeah, good stuff. So for Ken, then it might just be worth it because he already got the 16 and 24 competition. So maybe just a 20 kilo of a standard.
Yeah.
I don't know. What do you call it? Do we still call them the hard style kettlebell now, or just, I don't know, rep fitness, Dragon Door? It's actually pretty decent to find. It's pretty easy to find a decent kettlebell these days, whereas like 10 years ago, it was almost impossible.
20 was worse. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's funny because, you look at the Rogue Bell, and it is just a hack off of the Dragon Bell. And, of course, they'd never mention that in their, in their stuff. But what do I know? Okay, ready.
What are you using? Using Dragon Doorbells right now?
I have Dragon Doorbells, some, and then there's a place here over here called NPC. It's one of those places where they sell stuff that falls off the truck. And I get a lot of bells there. One time I got two 36K kettlebells. Check that. 2 24s and a 36 for $60.
Awesome. That's great.
Yeah. And
who cares if a kettlebell falls off a truck?
And they were Dragon Door, and that was a good deal. And so I have double 36s, I have 4 24s, I have 5, maybe 6 20s. I have a bunch of 14s I bought for a young lady who trains at the gym. Now, the only problem is I do have 12s and a bunch of others, but my wife and daughter, they steal them and I don't get them back. So I'm probably missing 7 or 8 bells to the females in my family. Downstairs, and if you ever, maybe I'll show you the tour downstairs next time.
Yeah, cool.
Downstairs in the corner, there's a bunch of bells where my wife uses the shaker plate every day as part of her morning, and she squats and does presses on the shaker plate. That's her morning routine, and there's a bunch of bells floating around there. So
cool, awesome. All right, let's see if we can squeeze 1 or 2 more in here. Then I have a date at the gym with my sister today. Tim, gentle listener Tim says, I hate cardio, but I want to be as healthy as possible.
Good.
How necessary is running? I'll do it if I have to, but wondering what your guys' opinion is.
The fact that you hate it and you want to do it doesn't make any sense to me from a long-term perspective.
I don't know if he wants to do it. He says he'll do it if necessary, I think.
Yeah, there's no. If Tim, who is it? Tim, you have to. I think there's a decision you have to make. I mean, if you like walking and you need to up your walking, well, put on a weighted backpack or a vest and walk with that. Running has benefits. There's no question about it. Running is wonderful. But if you hate it, you're not going to do it very well. I'd much rather go for a walk.
Yeah.
Over time, doing things you like to do is much smarter than doing things you hate to do. If I tell you you've got to eat and you hate cauliflower or Brussels sprouts, that's a better one. You hate Brussels sprouts.
I love Brussels sprouts.
3 times a day, you have to start every meal with 10 Brussels sprouts. We're going right into failure. We're just diving into failure. So, as you're listening to this podcast, you're doing cardio. your heart is beating. That's cardiovascular work. I like cardio. I like to play with cardio, and the way we do it generally is, of course, we use heart rate monitors, but doing a hill sprint followed by, if you have on a weighted vest and weights in your hands, a really hard hill walk up a hill. Doesn't have to be very far, 20, 30, 40, 50 meters. 50 would kill you. And
Yeah.
boom, and then you go on a gentle walk after that.
Yep.
Do it again. And when you look at the heart rate, if you have a heart rate monitor on, you can see that those pulses of the hill, boom, and then you watch it just slowly trail off. And then every time you do it again, you watch it trail off even slower.
Mm-hmm.
And then over time, you begin to notice little things like, okay, the first time we did 3 of these things, I ate 22 pancakes, 15 pieces of toast, and drank soft drinks. The 10th time I did it, I had a vegetable omelet.
Yeah.
So that, to me, I don't know how many people, Pat, use hunger as an indicator for training, but that's a big one for me. Actual hunger, to me gives us great feedback. Hunger, which is that weird. So there's fasting where you choose not to eat, and there's starving where there's nothing to eat. They're different. Mm-hmm. And then I give hunger its own little category. I really do. I think hunger is an underappreciated measurement of training.
Yeah.
If you get done and all you can think about is, God, I got to stop. I need bean burritos. Well, that is really tells you something about. I need pancakes.
For me, it's been ramen for me lately.
So whatever that is. Whereas if I'll finish a workout and you're like, I want to, a vegetable omelet. I don't know why I came up with that. I want a vegetable omelet with cottage cheese. It's that the person's in a different place.
So yeah, I'll echo a few of these points. One of my favorite things to do is I haven't done it recently because it's like Wisconsin weather outside, but we have a perfect hill in our neighborhood for hill sprints, just like the perfect gradation, perfect length. Yeah. So I'll sprint that. I'll jog part way around the loop, and then brisk walk for the rest of my recovery. Sprint again. Do that for sometimes I'll just do it for time, whatever I get in 15, 20 minutes, or sometimes I'll do 6 rounds of sprints total. And you're going to get tremendous cardio benefits from that. I think a lot of people, when they think cardio, they think they have to specifically run on the treadmill for an hour at a very restricted, moderate intensity. And I would say not only if you want to do that, great, power to you. But not only do you not have to do that, there's a lot more efficient ways that you can train cardio and spare yourself, I think, a lot of unnecessary boredom. I think, yeah.
And this is actually an article that Brian posted of mine just this week. Add push-ups to this. So you can do it 1 of 2 ways, or I guess a third. So when you get to the top of the hill, while you're still gasping, pop down and do 5, 8 push-ups.
Yeah.
And the thing is, getting up off the ground after that is going to be a massive heart rate spike. And option number 2, you can do push-ups and then hit the hill. So as you finish that 8th push-up, you leap up and attack the hill, which is going
to now you've got blood pooling up here, and now you've got to get it down there. Your heart is going to be working overtime.
What's option number 3? Both.
Love it. The cardio workout that will also build strength. How about it?
So, and I would cut down to maybe 3 to 5 push-ups on both ends there, because you want to make sure it's boom, boom. It's not, like when I do that workout where I do the goblet squat, prowler, push-up, the key is that it's prowler squat, prowler, push-up, not goblet squat, go get water, prowler, talk to your friend, push-up. It's the bang, bang, bang.
Yeah.
Bang,
yeah.
bang.
Okay. There's the name of the episode. Cardio workouts that build strength. I like that. Yeah. That'll get some clicks, right? So yeah, I love it. I love your goblet squat workout is another perfect example of this. Of course, kettlebell complexes are another good one, but I think we want to make sure we do work in some of that lower intensity walking as well. Yeah. So not just do the super high metabolic conditioning, but can we get that matrix or that blend? And I think interval running, the types of circuits you've described are great because they'll certainly crank the metabolism and help build strength, but you'll kind of span that range of different cardiovascular efforts.
I mean, I've never done this, but a gentle listener, generally I do everything I'm about to say, but this sparked an idea in me. What if you took your kettlebell out on the curb and you did 5 to 8 goblet squats, 5 to 8 push-ups, and then here's the key: walk and 100 meters, 100 yards, 400 yards around the block, from to the mailbox and back to the corner and back, and do it again. Ideally, you want to bring that. You want to go boom.
Yeah.
Boom. Mm-hmm. Oh, for those of you who are listening, you want to spike that heart rate, bring it down slowly. Spike the heart rate, bring it down slowly, but be moving the whole time. So as you're walking up to that, as you're finishing that walk, as you see the kettlebell sitting there, you are. As I get closer, I'm going to squat that the second I pick it up. Then the second I get there, and boom again. And so it's boom, boom, walk, boom, boom, walk. Yeah, I like that. So Tim, I think it was. So Tim, that's, for me, the other thing about these kind of workouts, Tim, is that they are absolutely repeatable over a long, long time. That when I first started doing these combinations, I call them Litvinovs, and a lot of people rip on me for that name, but the squat followed by the sprint, the hinge followed by the sprint or sled drag. What was really weird is that everybody noticed later on that our conditioning got better, and we only allow 3 of those. We only do 3 of those, and people say, why 3? And I say, well, if you can do more, you either didn't go heavy enough or hard enough. And when people finally get the idea of, like, I was with the weights weren't huge. Let's say I did 115 pounds overhead squats for 8, followed by a 80-yard sprint. That's not very much, but when you do it, it is. When you do it, when you sprint as hard.
Yeah, when you actually do it. Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, what's that word? You said do it. Is that a? Oh, that's right. Internet age. We just talk about it. We don't. So actually, when people say, why just 3? I always say, I know you didn't do it. It's like when people ask me about the Big 21 workout. It looks easy. That's why I know you didn't do it. The Tabata front workout looks easy. So I know you didn't do it. When I first became famous back in the Charles Staley thing, and someone raised their hand and said, I don't understand this Tabata front squat thing. And so back then I was a better coach than I am now. I said, okay. And we had him do with 65 pounds, the 4 minutes. And throughout the entire weekend, one of my favorite things was watching him walk and make decisions based on not getting out of the chair. He would to see him make a decision to get water, it would be like, I'm not that thirsty. I am.
Yeah.
It was very funny. I saw the picture of him doing it because I'm laughing at him.
Yeah, that's good stuff. Well, always love to leave the listeners with something practical that they can take and use. So I hope that is helpful.
How many more questions do you have in front of you?
Yeah, let's do one more, and then
we might have to do an episode maybe next week, the week after, where we just dive in.
Just straight questions. Yeah, we could do that. And for people who are listening, if you want to submit questions, there's a couple ways you could do it now. You can drop a comment on YouTube. I will fish some from there. On my email list, I send around a form, and that's where most of the questions come from. So if you're not on my email list, you can do that at my website, chroniclesofstrength.com, and also the Strong On Facebook group. So we've got a couple different places. If you send me a message on Instagram, I probably won't see it till like 3 months. So not ideal.
And, gentle listener, texting me a private message on Instagram. Look at me. I'm 62. Look at this. Very small. And we give me a 4-year program to get ready for the next Olympics in the water lacrosse. A 6-day a week.
Yeah. So just email Pat Flynn to Chronicles of Strength, subject line podcast. If you just want to do it the most old school way, just put podcasts in there because I don't want it to get buried. I do try to find all of them that I can because we enjoy this and they're good questions. All right, let's do this last one here. Make this the last one because I think it ties into the previous question. This is kind of fun. This comes from Matt. What is your guys' favorite, quote, just for the heck of it workout? Something you enjoy merely to test one's mettle. I must admit I find myself attracted to these types of, quote, insane routines, but also understand it's probably not ideal. How to balance?
Ooh, if you have one, go ahead and answer.
Oh, I mean, I've got some that are kind of like my viewers' favorites that have kind of surged in YouTube. So I've got like all these crazy kettlebell complexes, like the Great Destroyer, where you just do 8 reps of like double swings and,
I
and
see
front
where you're going.
squats and push and press. Yeah, where it's a huge metabolic assault, and it's really kind of I think that's probably what he's talking about.
Yeah.
So I love that one. Like every once in a while, I'll be like, all right, let's go. I've had a lot of coffee this morning. I just want to get as sweaty as I possibly can. Or how to balance is, again, it's kind of like every once in a while, it's certainly appropriate to throw that into a conditioning mix or routine.
Yeah.
But I do not make, that's kind of the mistake that people make. People see these high intensity workouts that probably either of us have, either on YouTube or have written articles, and they assume that's all we do. That is not all I do. In fact, most of my routines are pretty basic strength routines. I do conditioning a few times a week, mobility a few times, very basic stuff. But yeah, I love the complexes. Dan John, what's the one that I used to torture myself with of yours? The Eagle. The Eagle.
Yeah, the Eagle's good.
That's probably one.
But I don't mean to be contrarian to the person's question, but for me, the one lift a day program was so good. And then the one that shocked me the most in my whole career was that one we called the transformation program. 3 days a week, 2 exercises each workout, 3 sets of 8 with a minute rest in between. Within weeks of doing that, all of my throwers and even people would notice myself, you look good. And I'd be like, but these workouts only take 12 to 14 minutes. It can't be right. Mm-hmm. But it was sometimes getting the right dose is the key. I work with a number of people who, and it's a very sad story, but one of the women I deal with, her husband's come down with a cancer again. My neighbor has cancer again. And, one of the problems with oncology is nailing the dose. And that's where fast mimicking diets came from, was to the 5 days of vegetables only basically starves out those weak cancer cells. Are very weak. They're prolific, but they're weak. And then when you hit them with whatever you're hitting them with, the chemical, the radiation, whatever, they have less of a chance of survival because they're in such a depleted state. If you want to make your cancer cells happy, get all that sugar you can in there. That'll make them very pleased. So getting the dose right, and I love your question, by the way, but I'm worried but sometimes getting the dose right for training was more where my head's at. But if you don't mind me saying, back when I was training at my best, every other Wednesday was the Tabata front squat protocol. That's all the workout lasted. If it took me 9 minutes to do the workout, because I'd get in there, the bar was set. I just threw 10s on each side. Because even when I was opening in contests with 365 pounds, I only needed 65 or 95 pounds to do the workout. Mm-hmm. It's not the load, man. It's the damn reps.
Yep, the density of it, yeah.
I remember my little puppy of blessed memory, little Lexi, the first time I actually really did it right. And I walked in my old house. I didn't walk. I kind of stumbled down our driveway, and I laid down next to the fire hydrant that was in front of our house. And I don't know how long I was on the ground. I wouldn't say I passed out, but I wasn't doing well. And I remember, his master's voice, the old picture of the dog. She was in high alert with the ears, and she was just staring down at me like, I can't call 911 because I don't have thumbs. So what do I do? Mm-hmm. And that's when you've nailed it. So for me, gentle listener, to type in Dan John Tabata front squat, and don't do the other things ever recommend, just the front squat. Get back to me. Just honestly, the first time you do it, just do it with the barbell, the empty bar.
Yeah, and there's another cardio workout. Like you do that, you tell me you didn't just have an immense cardio impact with that.
Honestly, I'm glad I didn't use heart rate monitors on that workout.
They would have broke.
Well, when you start feeling the pulse right here.
Yeah.
Listeners, I'm touching my throat. When you feel your throat pumping, that's always an interesting boom, 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 boom. And I just remember, you get to, 20 seconds, step forward, racket, and then 8, 7, 6, Oh no.
Yep.
Oh,
The
3, 2,
dread.
go. Yeah.
Hmm.
Oh,
Good stuff. Well, there you go, Matt. Enjoy the torture.
yeah. Oh, and Matt, I want Matt to do the Tabata front squat workout, and then Matt, I want you to email me, Dan. Hey Brian, could we say have them send to our site? Would that be okay? Yeah. So Dan at danjohn.com, because I want to Dan at danjohnworkouts.com, because that will inspire me to reboot the, if he likes it, I'll make sure I'll make that workout available again. It was some of the ideas I've come up. One idea that failed miserably, and I'll be honest with you, is the one where you sit at the bottom. And it works. It's called bottom to bottom Tabatas.
Yeah. Hey, you know what? But I think that's good. Maybe we could pick that up next conversation. I've certainly have had many failed fitness ideas, but that's how you refine and you make things better, right? You have to be willing to experiment.
It becomes a bicep trainer. Yep. Because you're holding on to the weight. And I kept trying to tell the people at CrossFit, the workout that shall not be named, that you're this, and it's fine, because if you're just chasing tired, it's a good way to go. But if you're chasing what I was trying to do, and I hate to go on this, but in regional competitions and Olympic lifting, almost always I followed myself because there was no one around, so I had to get myself in shape, in a weird kind of repeatable shape, and that solved the Tabata front squat. Solved. I remember one time Dave Turner go, I don't know what's different about, I'm like, so, open it, I don't know, 365 and then clean and jerk. Okay, let's go to 74. Do you need more time? No, I'm fine. What? Well, because after you've done Tabatas, all I'm doing is clean and jerking. Yeah, it's heavy as hell, but it's not like a Tabata.
Awesome stuff. So what's on the agenda this week, Dan? What do you got coming up before our next conversation?
My wife and I, whenever I say hey, there's a thing on Facebook where if Kat said hey instead of meow, hey. Well, I'm very excited about this weekend for two things. One, North Dakota State and James Madison, Saturday morning, national championships. And then Monday night, I'm predicting the Tigers will win the national championship in football. I'm very LSU Clemson.
We have it here ahead of time, folks, so you can.
Yeah, I'm put your money on the Tigers winning, okay? And then I got Brian and I are going to do a whole bunch of stuff around here. Mike will be here in about 10 minutes, and we're going to today's buns and guns, ladies and gentlemen. You just don't get those pipes. No, life is very good. We've come through tonight's bingo.
Love it.
Here's the strangest thing, my friend. I feel like I'm me again. And I know that's a weird, I don't want to sound like Walt Whitman, that great song of myself, but I tell you, after 8 or 9 or 11 years of being in pain and finally getting myself to where I'm at now, I got to tell you, I've aged a lot. I've got some issues. Wednesday I go in to get some more cancer dug off of me. I mean, that's all this stuff. Sorry, folks. A lifetime being Irish, outside throwing the discus all those years.
Yeah.
But it doesn't matter, because I just feel like things I'm back to thinking the way I used to think. I'm back to
that's great.
Popping out of bed, feeling good, trying to make the world a better place.
Love it.
Yeah, so that's good. Thank you. And I got to tell you, Pat, this podcast, and I got it with my friend Brian. I don't think there's with no hint of hyperbole. This podcast, working with Brian, I don't know how long we've been doing this. It's got to go back to May, but this is just such a bright spot in my week.
Likewise. Yeah, absolutely. It's a total joy. Always. It's one of those things where we talked about this before. Is like, if you come into a huge windfall, right, and you don't have to pay another bill again, would you continue doing what you're doing? Absolutely. This would be one of those things I would look forward to just as much as always. So.
And I know we're going over and all this, but I would love to sit down with a 14-year-old little Danny John and tell him, dude, it's all worth it. Keep on your academic, keep reading those books, keep lifting weights by yourself. Don't let people say that weightlifting turns you gay. Don't let people say weightlifting. Don't listen to them about the muscle bound thing. you hang in there, brother. You're right. It's all going to be worth it. And this morning is one of those days that I'd love to share with him.
Yeah.
And of course, and my wife's hot too, so that's pretty cool too.
Yeah. Beautiful stuff. Dan John, as always, a pleasure. And same time next week?
Same bat time.
Same bat channel. We will see you then.
Love you, brother.
Have a good one.
I will. You too. Bye-bye.